Hello there, Year 9. Welcome to another science lesson. This is lesson number 4 of week 7. So we have started now the disease topic. Yesterday you would have had a video from Miss Corbett talking about health and disease and looking at patterns in graphs and things like that, which we need to know. Today we're going to be looking at some microorganisms that cause disease. So today's lesson is going to be on pathogens and disease. Now, what I would like you to do from last lesson, I know it was the first lesson on diseases, is to have a go at either defining in 3 words, 3 key point sentences, or summarising in 1 paragraph everything that you remember that was important from last lesson. So can you pause the video? Have a go at one of those activities, and then once you've done that, you can go back in your notes to check that the information that you have put is correct. So pause the video now. Okay, so what we need to know from this lesson, for grades 1 to 4, we need to be able to state that pathogens are microorganisms that cause disease. That's a really important definition that will come up later that we do all need to know. We need to be able to describe ways that pathogens can be spread, so how diseases spread. For 5 to 6, we need to describe how bacteria and viruses cause disease and explain why communicable diseases spread rapidly after a natural disaster. And for 7 to 8, we need to be able to explain why viruses are also pathogens, but not all bacteria are. Okay, let's begin. There's a couple of questions here that I'd like you to have a think of. This ties in with Key Stage 3, where you would have done a little bit about health and disease. So the first question is, are all microbes pathogens? So that's going to be a yes or no answer. All microbes pathogens. And for the second one, which I suppose would be important to know to help with the first one, what does the term pathogen mean? So what is a pathogen? You don't need to write anything down. Just pause the video, have a think about it. When you've got some answers, then push play again. Okay, so the question to do with, just have a look at my notes, are all microbes pathogens? Something that we're going to be looking at today, but no, they're not. So not all microbes are pathogens. There is a difference between them. And what does the term pathogen mean? It's going to come up in the next slide, so don't worry about writing it down as I'm saying it. But these are disease-causing microorganisms. So what we need to know, and this is a very, very important sentence, a pathogen is a disease-causing microorganism. Not all microorganisms are pathogens. So that first bit, up until the comma, is the definition for what a pathogen is, and is incredibly important. And we get 4 different groups of pathogens. So these are microorganisms that cause diseases. They're either bacteria, viruses, protists, or fungi. So those are the 4 groups of pathogens. So what I would like you to do now is put a definition for what a pathogen is. So that's the sentence up to the comma. And then the 4 groups of pathogens, so the bacteria, the viruses, the protists, and the fungi. So pause the video and do that now, please. Okay, so mention this word communicable, and we can put diseases into 2 groups. They're either communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases. Communicable diseases are caused either directly by a pathogen or by a toxin made by a pathogen. They are passed from one infected person to another. Some communicable diseases are fairly mild, so things like a cold tonsillitis. Others are obviously much more deadly, such as tetanus, influenza, and HIV. So what do we need to know from this slide? I would say the most important bit is the communicable diseases are caused by pathogens and are passed from one person to another. So that's a big difference between communicable and non-communicable. Non-communicable diseases, you can't catch them off each other. So things like cancer, diabetes, coronary heart disease, you can't give that to someone else. But communicable diseases are ones that will spread from person to person. So can we put a sentence down, please, about what a communicable disease is? So they're caused by pathogens and they're passed from one infected person to another. Pause the video now. Okay, now you might have noticed the little animation on the left-hand side. And it's something that's in the news a lot at the moment, obviously with the current crisis going on. And it's referring to the R value. And you might have read about the R value or heard about the R value from the Prime Minister or from the health officials. But the R value is the rate in which it's passed on. So if we take a disease like measles, if one person is infected with measles, then they'll pass it on average, to 12 to 15 other people. So a huge number of people. Measles is very, very contagious, very easily passed from one person to the next. At the moment of this recording, obviously it goes up and down all the time, but the R value for COVID-19 is about 0.7 to 0.9. So one person is passing it on to just under one other person. And it's really important that that number is below 1 because it means that if you're passing it on to just under one person, it means eventually the disease will dissipate. As soon as it goes slightly above 1, so even if it's 1.0001, that's how they spread. And that's what they're really worried about at the moment, is that if you pass it on to more than one person, then the numbers go up incredibly quickly. Right at the start, just before lockdown went in, they thought that the R value was between 2 and 3. So you can see that a number like 2 and 3 might not seem very much, but it spreads so quickly if it's above 1, which is why there was such a huge number of infections shortly after. Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to be looking firstly at bacteria and viruses. You probably know that COVID-19 is a virus. It's not on the specification, so it's not one that will that you have to know about for the exam. They might put it into the exam and ask you to apply your knowledge, but it's not one of the specific ones that you do have to know about. But it is a viral infection. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through bacteria and viruses, just a little bit of information about each one. So what I'd like you to do is make a quick T table. So that is one single line horizontal and one going vertically down in the middle. On one side, put the title bacteria, and on the other side, put the title virus. We're going to go through a couple of slides, one on bacteria, one on viruses, and I want you to pick out 3 main facts, at least 3 main facts about each to put into your table. So you're going to need to pause the video now, do your table with a ruler and pencil, and then we will begin. Okay, so we're going to start with the bacteria. So on the bacteria side of your table, you need to put in at least 3 of these. If you want to put in more, if you want to put in all of them, that's absolutely fine. But we need to put in at least 3. So first of all, a bacteria is a single-celled living organism. So we know from one of our first lessons that it is a prokaryote. is a cell that does not contain a nucleus, but it is a single-celled organism. They are much smaller than plant or animal cells, and we use them a lot in our food production. So to get cheese, we need bacteria. To make yogurt, we need bacteria. Very important. And the ones that we put into cheese and yogurt are obviously not harmful ones. The pathogens are the ones we don't want in our food. But your skin is covered in bacteria. Your digestive system is full of bacteria. There are in fact more bacterial cells in you and on you than you have got human cells. So they are very important. We do need them, but the ones that cause disease, they're the pathogens. We also use them to treat sewage. So in the sewage works, you'll have lots of bacteria, and we use that to break down the organic matter so that it can be disposed of easily. We use bacteria to make medicine, and it's really important in the environment because it breaks down other things. So it will break down dead organisms, breaks down feces. If we didn't have the bacteria and the insects, things like that, then we would just be knee deep in poo and dead animals. So can we pause the video, put down at least 3 important things about bacteria? Okay, so we're going to move on to viruses now. And viruses are not classed as living things. So even though we say they're microorganisms, they're not technically an organism, they're not technically a living thing because they need a host cell to survive. So the only way the viruses are able to live is to attack a host cell, so one of our cells, another animal cell, and they use that cell to reproduce. They consist of RNA or DNA in a protein coat. So you might be able to see in the background picture, it's just a picture of one. You've got that, kind of looks like a spider. You've got the DNA or the RNA, depends on which virus, in the protein coat. You've got these things that attach to the cell, and then it just injects its genetic information into the cell, and it forces the cell to make many, many more viral particles. Viruses are much, much smaller than bacterial cells. In fact, most of the viruses actually only attack bacterial cells. They're irregular shapes, so they're not a regular shape like a bacterial cell. They're very irregular, and they cause diseases in every type of living organism. So as I say, they attack bacteria, they'll attack fungi, they attack the animals, they attack every living thing. Okay, so can we pause the video and get down at least 3 facts about viruses? So hopefully we have got a table now that looks kind of like this, where we've just got some important, at least 3 facts about bacteria and viruses on either side. Right, now we're not finished with the table now. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you some different illnesses that are caused by either bacteria or viruses, and you've got to decide which one causes that disease. Okay, and when you, or if you think that you know, put it on the correct hand side of your table. So if you think it's a viral disease, put it in the viruses side. You think it's a bacterial disease, the bacterial ones. If you get it wrong, obviously just draw an arrow to point it to where it should go. Okay, so we're going to start off with tuberculosis. Now, you are lucky because not many of you will probably have had the immunization against tuberculosis, something that we all used to have. It was a horrible injection, as injections go, and you had a little stamp as well that you had to have for it. Now it tends to be that only people in at-risk categories or risk areas will have the vaccination for tuberculosis. It is a disease, as you can see from the picture, that affects the lungs. And one of the symptoms that you might see in films and things like that is somebody coughing and bringing up blood. That is one of the later symptoms of tuberculosis. So do we think that that is a bacterial disease or a viral disease? It is a bacterial disease. So tuberculosis is caused by a bacteria. Right, next one, mumps. Now, this is making a bit of a comeback in recent years. If you've had your MMR vaccination, then that protects against measles, mumps, and rubella. But unfortunately, a lot of people are not having the MMR, so it means the number of mumps and measles, rubella has increased. But mumps, do you think that that is a viral infection or a bacterial infection? It is a viral infection. And you can see from this person's neck what mumps does. It causes big swelling in the glands in your neck. Right, next one, measles. It used to be very common, now much less so. But again, like with mumps, there's a lot more cases of it because people are not getting properly vaccinated. Do we think that that is bacterial or viral? It's viral. So well done if you got those. If you got them wrong, doesn't matter. Put the arrow over. Just make sure you've got these examples in your table. Okay, next one. Food poisoning. So you might have heard of Salmonella or Escherichia coli or E. coli causes food poisoning. But is that caused by bacteria or viruses? What do you think? Well done if you said bacterial. So Salmonella and E. coli are both bacteria and they cause food poisoning. So you're probably familiar with the idea of it, which is basically going to be vomiting and diarrhea. Right, next up, chickenpox. So quite a lot of you will have had chickenpox before. You get the scars, some of you might still have scars from it, but you get these lumps over your body that are incredibly itchy. That's the kind of main symptom. It's good if you have had it because it affects children, kind of like COVID-19, affects children a lot less than it does adults. So it's better to actually have it when you're younger, if possible, so that it doesn't affect you badly later in life. But is it caused by a bacteria or by a virus? Well done if you said that it was a virus or is a virus. It is a viral disease. Okay, next one, polio. So polio used to be a much more common disease. It's still common in certain places across the world. But one of the side effects of polio is it can cause disfiguring of the limbs. So quite often people would have a disfigured leg or an arm. Obviously is something that doesn't go away. Now, do we think that that is caused by a virus or from a bacteria? Okay, well done if you said virus. It is a viral infection. And again, it's one of the ones that we have vaccinations for. I don't know whether it's still like this, but when I had the polio vaccination, it's a liquid one, so it's not an injection, and you just had it put on a sugar cube and you ate the sugar cube. I think now they can just put it straight into your mouth, but this one does not tend to be an injection. Right, and the last one is going to be whooping cough. And the name of this is because you get a cough, and it's a very deep kind of whooping sound and often affects children. So do we think that that is bacteria or viral? Well done if you said that it was bacterial. Whooping cough is caused by a bacteria. Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to do a little bit more about the two different pathogens, the two types of pathogens. Let's get the information up first. So here is some pictures of a bacteria and a virus. Remember, there are millions of species of bacteria, many viruses as well, huge diversity. But here's two pictures to illustrate two types of bacteria or viruses. Now, bacteria divide very quickly. And the way that they do that, kind of like with mitosis, is you start off with your single cell, and then it will split into two pretty much identical cells. And it's called binary fission, bi meaning two, so binary fission. Bacteria produce something called toxins. And these are basically poisons, and they're the things that make you feel ill. So the bacteria will produce a toxin. That's what will make you feel nauseous. That's what will give you diarrhea. It's the toxins that they produce. Some bacteria will directly damage your cells. Most of them, though, it's caused you get ill because of the toxins that it produces. Viruses, on the other hand, will actually take over your cells. So if you look at the viral disease like HIV, that will actually attach to white blood cells, and it will cause that white blood cell to make many new viral particles. They live and reproduce inside the cells, damaging and destroying them. Now, whether it be bacterial or viral, they can cause some common symptoms. And you might recognize, bearing in mind that these PowerPoints were written before COVID-19, you might recognize a lot of this with some of the stuff that you'll hear about what's going on at the moment. So common disease symptoms are high temperature, headaches, and rashes. Okay, and a lot of those are actually caused by your own body. So your body will start to raise its temperature, which causes fever, high temperature fever, to try and destroy it. So quite a lot of you feeling bad is just your own body trying to get rid of the bacteria or the virus. So can you pause the video and can you pop in the information into the correct side of the table we've been working on? Okay, ignore that one. So what we're going to do now, so we've looked at some the differences between bacteria and the differences with viruses. We've looked at a couple of examples of the diseases. What we're going to be finishing up with is how they spread. Okay, so there's three main ways in which pathogens are spread. They're spread by the air, by direct contact, direct contact, and by water. So if we take COVID-19, for instance, again, it can actually spread by all of those. So it can be spread in the droplets that we produce when we cough or sneeze. We can pass it on if we cough or sneeze on our hand and then touched a surface and somebody then touched that surface again, so we can get that transmission. And it can also survive in the water, like in the water droplets that we produce when we cough and sneeze, which is making me want to cough now as well. So we're going to go through the three ways that they are transmitted. What I would like you to do as we go through each is to do a little bit about each one. I want to know if it happens in plants, humans, we are animals, whether it happens in both, and at least two examples of diseases that are spread that way, and just a little description of how it actually happens. So we're going to go through the 3 ways, and we just need to make sure that we've got some information about that. And then we'll come back at the end just to make sure you've got everything that you need. So we're going to start with air, and that includes that droplet infection that I was talking about that we produce when we cough and sneeze. So many pathogens, including bacteria, viruses, and fungal spores, are carries and spread from one organism to another one in the air. Carriers, that should be, sorry. In human diseases, droplet infection is common. So when you're ill, these viruses or the bacteria will actually be in your respiratory system, so in your lungs. And then when you cough and sneeze, you cough it up. And you can't see it. It's not like you'll all of a sudden be hit in the face with a bit of spit. These are teeny tiny droplets that are spread out when people cough or sneeze. That then if you walk through, breathe it in, or if you're just nearby and breathe it in, that will then get into your lungs. Common examples are influenza, which we call the flu, which is the same group of viruses that COVID-19 is, tuberculosis, and the common cold are all spread through the air. So pause the video, take what information you need that I said from the previous slide. So we need to know, does it happen in plants and or humans? 2 examples of diseases and a description of how it actually happens. So read through and put down your thoughts. Pause the video now. Okay, next one is direct contact. So some of the diseases are spread by direct contact. So if you make contact with another person, for instance, then it can spread from one to the other. It's quite common with plant diseases. So it does happen in both animals and plants, but it is more common in plant diseases. If in people, diseases including sexually transmitted infections, so syphilis, chlamydia, HIV, hepatitis, all of those will occur through direct sexual contact, which counts as direct contact. Animals can act as vectors of both plant and animal diseases by carrying a pathogen between infected and uninfected individuals. So a really good example of that is malaria. There is a protozoa, protist, that lives on the mosquito. The mosquito doesn't cause the disease, it's already infected. So that would count as direct contact because it uses the animal as a vector. It takes it from one to the other. So can we pause the video, and again we need to get down whether it happens in plants and or animals, some examples of diseases that spread that way, and a description of how it happens. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last one, which is water. So water is another one which people will be infected by quite often, especially in developing countries where there isn't clean water and it doesn't go through water treatment, which we are lucky enough to have in the UK. So fungal spores carried in splashes of water often spread plant diseases. So fungi will often spread in water in plants. For humans, eating raw, undercooked or contaminated food or drinking water will actually spread the diseases. And if we go through some of the examples, so you've got things like cholera, salmonella as well. These are ones where you pick up because you are eating or drinking something that is infected. Quite often, if there is a natural disaster, because all of the sewage works and things like that will often back up. So if you have flooding or tsunamis, things like that, then all of the sewage is in the water around you, and it's very easy to pick up diseases. That's why when there is flooding in England, obviously it's really important not to go in that water, because it's just a lot of the sewage works in that water, and it's very easy for diseases to spread. Lifestyle factors often affect the spread of diseases. So when people live in crowded conditions where there isn't a sewage system, then they spread really, really quickly. So can we pause the video? Remember, we need, whether it happens in plants, humans, or both, 2 examples and a description of how it's actually spread. So pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully we have got something that looks like this. So air, it happens in both plants and humans. There is some examples of the flu, tuberculosis, and there's a brief description there how it actually passes on. Again, we've got that for direct contact and for water. So if you want to pause the video, read the sentences that I've got and see if it is pretty much the same as what you've got, make any corrections if necessary. Okay, so last bit is a 6 marker. So this is looking at what you have taken from this lesson. So can you describe and explain the main differences between bacteria and viruses and how they cause diseases? Now it's worth 6 marks, and we've gone through quite a lot about this. So hopefully on this one we should be able to pick up quite a few marks. So can you pause the video and have a go at that question, please? Okay, so we're going to go through now. This is where I wanted that slide about the different colour pen. So grab your different colour pen or pencil, and we're going to go through just 6 points that I thought of for this. But you might have other ones that are also worthy of a mark. So you could have said that bacteria are single-celled organisms that are much smaller than plant and animal cells, or you might have said that bacteria are much smaller than viruses, or you might have said that bacteria that will be sufficient. If there is a size comparison between bacteria and viruses, that is going to be worth a mark. If you said that bacteria divide rapidly, or bacteria divide by splitting in 2 or binary fission, whereas viruses use body cells or cells to reproduce in, that's going to be a difference between the 2. If you said that bacteria produce toxins, then that would be worth a mark. If you said the viruses damage and destroy cells, or viruses destroy the cells, that would be worth a mark. And then for the how they spread, you can speak about water, direct contact, or through the air. Each of those is going to be worth a mark as well. So hopefully we were able to get 6 marks on that. That brings us to the end of the lesson. So all of us need to know what a pathogen is. So a pathogen is a microorganism that causes disease. How they're spread, so that is through air, through water, through direct contact. For 5-6 describe how bacteria and viruses cause disease. So we've looked at bacteria producing the toxins, viruses destroying cells. Explain why communicable diseases spread rapidly following a natural disaster. So that is to do with the sewage and infected material being in the water. For 7 to 8, hopefully we're able to explain why viruses are always pathogens, because they always have to have another organism and they end up destroying it, so they're always pathogens. But not all bacteria are. So we do use a lot of bacteria for good things, and they don't cause us disease. They're completely harmless, so they are not pathogens. Right, that's it from me then. We have one more lesson tomorrow, and then it will be half term. So I hope you're all well, taking care of yourselves, and you'll hear from me tomorrow. Thank you very much. Well done. Goodbye.